Welcome, everyone, to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee, to the show. Rob, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning to you, Todd. It's great to be back. On video again. It's been a few weeks since we've been on video. It's the audio experience.
Yeah,
Seems like we've been doing the most of lately.
Yeah, we did a couple of audio, one video. I was gone. Video. Now I think you're gonna be gone next week. It's just crazy, but it is what it is. That's the life we live. So, I just, for everyone's note, I had fully planned on doing a show last weekend, and the team meeting for Raw Voice Blueberry went a little long, and so I was unable to do it at the time Rob and I had kind of talked about doing it. So it's all on me for not having a show last week. But it was time well spent. Did you see my Facebook post of our new?
I did see your Facebook post. You're going to take over the world, or something that you were posting.
Well, did you see the post of our new unfit? Well, we're moving in next week. Our new office space.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got a real professional looking space there.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
So we've outgrown the space we've been in for, I don't know, 3-4 years. And so I walked into the place and I just started laughing. I'm like, you guys are going to have plenty of room.
Yeah.
I've got a nice team, but not that big of a team, but plenty of room to find a corner and get secluded and hide out in. But the furniture, that we're in the wrong business. That's the racket to be in.
It seems like every other business is the business to be in besides podcasting.
They get the furniture quote, and I'm like, that's an employee.
Yeah, that's right. That desk is an employee, right?
Or desk, or and kitchen hutch, and oh my god.
Yeah. No, it's expensive. Kind of moving into that phase of your business. I know you've spent probably most of your time as really more of a virtual business, and I know that's kind of where we are as well.
Well, we've had an office space, but not. I think we've been at like 1,200 square feet or something like that.
Yeah,
and we're moving into 3,500 square feet. So
okay, wow.
Yeah, and 4 offices, and so it's big, but I'm thinking to myself, if we fill this, then we'll really have arrived. But the thing is,
I think you also posted something that you're going to do. You're going to build a whole new studio too.
Yeah. We're going to build a full-fledged podcast studio we're going to work out how it's going to work, but we think we'll be able to open it up during business hours for folks in Columbus to come in and use it. So at least we want to become more. Columbus is a center of our podcasting universe, and so we thought we would at least try to do something. If we're going to be a podcast company, you better have a really cool studio. So anyway, that's kind of the plan. I got to find a desk and stuff. As a matter of fact, I got to get on that this weekend. But anyway, you're getting ready to head to Portugal, right?
Yep. Actually, on Sunday afternoon, I'm going to head to Portugal for about 6 days for the Gen Summit, which is an event for journalists in Lisbon. So I'm going to be putting on a 2-day workshop down there with a co-presenter that's going to talk about kind of journalism in producing a podcast that would fit with kind of like more reporters and things like that. So I'm going to talk more about the kind of nuts and bolts on how to start one, how to launch one as far as podcasts, and how to market it and things like that. So,
that's cool. So it should be fun, and you get some time. And I've never been to Portugal, so
I haven't either.
Europe is. I think I've been to it was when I was in the Navy, 3 or 4 countries. But Crete, and which of course is in Spain, and then England and Scotland, and so a few, but not too many. Got to get back over in that part of the world. All right. Well,
it's definitely growing in the podcasting side. So things are up in Canada, in Europe. There's more and more podcasts coming out, and it's more of a focus now than really ever before.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
So anyway, into the podcasting news and stuff that's been going on in the space, you you posted an ominous Facebook post last night. What, something to do with fraud and podcast advertising and inflating downloads and...
Well, I mean, Todd, like you posted in the comment thread on this, this isn't really anything tremendously new. It's been something that the podcast hosting platforms have been battling for many years now, is people going out and buying essentially fake views or fake listens, using these bots. And more, we're all battling, the influence of unreal bots out there that are causing activity. Either it be social media, on places like YouTube, and it's just happening more and more in the podcasting space, where when there's a money motivation, that people will cheat. I mean, essentially that's kind of what the bottom line is, and they'll drive our auto-generated views to roll up their numbers to make them look more popular than they really are. So, but it's really, it's the same thing people have been doing with Twitter and Facebook around followers and friends and likes and all this kind of stuff. There's places you can go to buy all those things, and that's happening more and more, especially as we move into kind of this next phase of podcast monetization that's using dynamic ad insertion, a more automated kind of programmatic ad buying things, that there's going to be a lot more people able to monetize using these technologies, and there's going to be a real temptation to kind of cheat with this stuff and buy, let's say, 100,000 downloads or plays or something like that. But the truth of the matter is that hosting platforms like what you and I have, Todd, in this medium, there are fairly straightforward signs of this activity that's going on that our programming team and the engineering team can recognize very quickly. So it's something that people will think they can get away with, but in the long run, that they will get discovered, and they will lose their account, and they will get potentially, I think, shamed in the medium for doing this. So I don't know, Todd, I know you've got pretty strong opinions about this too, and I know you've been battling it for years as well.
Well, what's kind of interesting is that in the early days, I mean, we got to go way back. Yeah. In the 6, 7, 8, 9, 2006, 7, 8, 9 years, this is when we saw the emergence of this. And, and I there was a number of blog posts, a number of newsletters, and we basically, I've got a blacklist, and shows that go back, those shows are, well, most of them are no longer even in existence, but I've got a blacklist of shows that were just basically banned from doing any deals because they were doing this type of activity. So we would just inform the content creator, hey, we see what you're doing. You're off the campaign, you're forfeiting, and we would explain what they had done and gave them an opportunity to defend themselves, and 9 out of 10 times, no response, or come back and with an apology, and and those that apologized and showed remorse, I would actually have a little more sympathy for. But this is something that we had to address very, very early, and then it tapered off. I mean, I think it was because I became such a hard ass about it.
Yeah,
that people knew, hey, you can't play that game with me, and it disappeared. Now, I haven't had to put out a cautionary email in a long time. So, if this is re-emerging itself, I'm going to have to start looking at it closer again. But, we put in a huge amount of work to detect fraud.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a widespread issue at this point, but I'm just trying to nip it in the bud before it becomes something a little bit more ominous, because I think, you look at some of these companies that are forming, especially outside of the United States, that are setting up these bot farms that can do automated activities online, and you're seeing it in the kind of political landscape right now around bots that are going after, it's another form of online kind of warfare and manipulation and things like that, and that's one of the fallouts of being in a digital kind of world now, is that computers will start doing more and more activities online for us, and this is, I believe it's going to become over time more and more of an issue, and the technology companies that are trying to control this, what would be termed as kind of like fraudulent activity. We're going to all have to be a little smarter about how we detect it and how quickly we respond to it. And I think, even platforms like Twitter and Facebook and whatever, this is part of a kind of a bigger trend, I believe. Though I don't think in the podcasting space it's very widespread right now, because we haven't typically had widespread automation around monetization yet. So that's kind of we're on the leading edge of that right now. And I saw a couple of shows, fairly big shows, that you would be surprised probably, there was some linkage with them with this activity, and one that I can think of here, that I came across, was blaming like a super fan for doing this on their behalf, and they weren't aware of it, which stretches my imagination a little bit to believe that that's really true. So I mean, why would somebody go out and spend $150 on the behalf of some show?
Right.
I mean, I suppose it's possible, but it's just, I just don't want to see this get out of hand, I guess. And so that's why I raised the flag on this. In some ways, I don't like even talking about it, because it gives people the idea that it's possible. Well, quite honestly,
Rob, you have to you have to bring a hammer. You need to bring Thor.
Which is what we're doing, but
and you have to squash it like a bug, and when the word will get out, and you hate to say it, but you put the warning out, and you have to make some examples. If you're going to participate in this activity, and you're monetizing, here's the thing. Here's okay, calm, breathe. I want podcasters to really listen here, please. And you take this forward to every podcaster that's monetizing. Advertisers know, when they do a campaign, they have an idea. After they've run a campaign, they have a real sense in what the cost per acquisition if it's a direct response campaign and where someone is buying a product. When they're running in 50 shows or 100 shows, they get an average. They get a running average that is like, let's just use a number, $20 to acquire a customer in a podcast advertising campaign. Mm. And all of a sudden, when a show goes to 80, one show goes to 80.
Yeah.
They're going to go, why? Why is it show going to 80? And they go and look at that show. And first thing they're going to do is they're going to say, pull that show, cancel it. Let's get rid of it. Okay, let's get rid of that show.
It's an outlier is what it is.
It's an outlier, right.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go, well, I'm already watching, but I'm going to go digging. And and what happens too is when you're running podcast stats, and when you have a lot of shows, you see this, this median number running, and all of a sudden when there's this like blip,
little spike,
a little blip amongst everything, that is unusual activity coming from unusual IPs or wherever it's coming from, you go, what is that? And you go look at it and you're like, oh, okay. But what you're really, really doing here, and I'm going to be, if you have sensitive ears, you're fucking us, because this is what happens. You're causing trust issues in the podcast advertising space.
Well, you're causing problems for yourself and for the industry. Yeah.
For the industry at large, for a short-term gain.
Yeah. Yep.
And this is why I've always, for years and years and years and years, why I've had such heartache about how some companies count. We've talked on the show for years about disparity in podcast stats between companies. And the IAB came out, gave a set of guidelines for people to follow to get us a lot closer together.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're, if the podcast companies are all working on a level playing field, and all the podcasters are playing fairly, this space is going to succeed or fail on its own merit. And we don't need some douchebag to buy some extra 100,000 downloads to pump his paycheck up.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not going to work in the long run anyway. I mean, it's definitely in. And what's funny about it is when you look at the stats, and Todd, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but I mean, at least there's some intelligence behind this. What they'll do is they'll spread those particular requests across, a fairly large number of shows, or a long period of time, right? So but you'll definitely see a bump. Like, let's say a show has 1,000 downloads or something like that on a week-over-week basis for the last month or something like that, and then all of a sudden, the last 4 weeks, you've seen him just for some artificial reason that number go from 1,000 up to 6,000 or 7,000, right? But for no apparent reason, right? And that's a sign of it. And then like on some platforms, you have plays and you have downloads,
right?
And what they'll do is they'll oscillate back and forth between plays and downloads, and those numbers will be like a huge roller coaster ride, right? That is so easy to pick up in the data.
Yeah.
And
so someone was asking, Patrick was asking in the chat room, did the folks at iTunes have a hand in this? No, not at all.
No,
this is internal to our companies looking at this stuff. But there's a whole nother topic about iTunes we'll get into, or we should say Apple Podcasts. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also usually more traced and relatable to web players. Is usually the pattern. It's not so much you're getting this activity off of an iTunes type of platform.
Right.
So that's another sign. Yeah.
But, unfortunately, my blacklist document, and as a matter of fact, I know right where it's at, is pretty short list of shows.
Yeah. It's not, it's not a widespread problem.
Right.
Todd. I just don't want it to become like it has with Twitter and Facebook.
Right. Because I have zero tolerance. And it is strictly, and we put it in our contract we have for advertising. I have a zero tolerance policy, absolute zero tolerance. You can plead your case, but when I come to you and say you're banned from doing ad deals with us, I don't think I've had a single, like it's some show begged forgiveness. Maybe one show I would allow back on like 6 months later, but because you hurt my reputation too.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I take it personally. It's my company's reputation, but I take it really personal.
I mean, and you're going to be evaluated based on your ROI,
right?
For any campaign that you're doing,
mm-hmm.
and in the end, it's not going to work anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get dropped from campaigns because you didn't convert. So, that's the other part of it. It's basically a very short window way of looking at things.
There's no way I would have been able to keep GoDaddy as here's what I'm based on. GoDaddy doesn't even care about my numbers.
No. Yeah.
They don't. They care about performance. They know what they're paying, and they know if this is they care about performance. As long as I meet performance, they're happy,
Yeah.
And that's the way most advertisers now. And then when we get into non-DR campaigns, when we get into brand campaigns, brand awareness, that type of stuff,
There's a lot of trust.
there's a huge amount of trust. So we can only stand on what because there is where most trouble has happened in the advertising space. The DR space self-adjusts itself. They just cancel the show, and they say, don't take them off. Don't ever throw them on another campaign again. But brand is where I'm going to Ford and I'm running a Ford or Geico ad and we're putting it in 1 million views and I'm sending them a bill, and there's no true performance. They may look at click-throughs to websites or whatever we try to set up but brand awareness is a big different type of deal than DR. So if we don't have trust, and this is part of the issue with why the brand advertising hasn't come in, is there's still a trust issue with the podcast numbers, and at least that's what people or their justification is that that's the problem. So I don't think so, but
well, and that's the danger of these automated bots generating traffic, is that if there's a reputation of that in this medium that gets out there and it becomes widespread, then those big brands are not going to come in.
So in each, in the IAB document, in the IAB podcast measurement document, there's not a lot talked about on fraud. So each company has to come up with their own way to detect fraud, and we're of the strong belief that there needs to be additional layer in the IAB podcast guidelines document that lays out some of these things related to fraud. Fraud's hard, but when we had to build to it, and it's something that we just kind of knew was going to happen in the space, and tactics will change with time, of course. So we have to keep watching. I'll go out and I'll buy one of those deals, Rob. I'll go out and I'll find those spaces, and I'll just go in as a third party. I'll buy 100,000 views, and we'll capture the data. That's how we do it. Come on. Well, how did you do this? All right, this is the behavior.
Well, and it's not tremendously difficult to do. I mean, there's it's really as easy and available, as part of what's called script kiddies. There's these websites that you can get scripts, and people can run these things on their home computers. I mean, this is not difficult things to turn on and off. There's code that you can get, but it's and everybody's selling it for different prices, and you can get different quantities, and it's just a matter of setting the software to ping against a URL. I mean, it's but there are countermeasures that platforms can put in place to block those things too, and we definitely have those on our platform, and I know you do too. And there's things that you can do. It's a little bit like warfare, right?
Right. And it's always fun to go out and look and see what things are doing, and we'll dig through it, and we'll, and there's always, because it is scripted, it's usually very, very easy to combat. But then again, there's other activities people can do where they're going out and they're having, it's just like a YouTube subscribe campaign. They've got 1,000 people in Asia that go in and subscribe to a YouTube video, and to push YouTube subscribes up, and that happens as well out there as well.
Yep.
So
that's true.
Yeah, but anyway, it's one thing I do like about the when folks do that, Rob, is that in order to maintain their numbers, they have to spend a lot of money, because if they're going to start it, they can't stop it. So
when they do, you can really see it.
Right. They come on and they're up, and let's say they went from 1,000 to 6,000 listeners, and then they got to keep writing that check, because the numbers can't drop back down again.
Especially overnight, right?
Right. It can't drop down again. So it's just like this, unless someone comes in day one, episode 1, and they start writing checks on episode 1, come on, Yeah. But most people are like, they're in a year or 2 in, and let's do an ad deal, and let's get some more money. And
well, Todd, so you heard about that that story of this company that's selling placement.
Oh yeah,
in the top 200 list or the top 10 list of iTunes.
Yeah, right? a little
$5,000 a month or something.
A little birdie told me that over 200 shows have been removed.
Oh, from the top 200 list?
Not from, overall, but this was not from Apple. Okay, I'm just being straight up. This was not a source from Apple.
Yeah. Okay.
But someone's been doing some independent investigation on this, and they said 250 shows have been removed from Apple Podcast. There was some 4 or 5 that were given, banned from Apple. Can you imagine having your show banned from Apple Podcast? Talk about having to learn how to get your audience another way.
I guess you could always do a deal with Spotify,
right? Yeah,
like Amy Schumer.
Yeah,
you don't have to be on Apple, I guess, anymore.
So here is the warning: if you're buying again, paying a service to get you placement in the top 200 of iTunes, your days on iTunes I keep saying iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Every time I say iTunes, anyone from Apple is listening to this cringes. Apple Podcasts, you're probably going to get banned by Apple.
And your days of being a podcaster are pretty much over at that point.
Done. So, here's the crazy part. There were blog posts, very public podcast blog posts that were made about these individuals that were doing this. Mm-hmm. They were contacted about them doing this. Apple saw the article. Apple already knew they had an issue, and they didn't stop doing the behavior. Okay, so all right, Rob, this is to me is borderline insanity. All right,
money will corrupt your mind right away, Todd.
You've been caught. All right, you've been caught. You say you're doing something to drive yourself to the top 200. You have been named in a blog post.
Yeah.
Any sensible person would be like,
yeah,
they'd eat crow and stop doing it. Right. And they
like cashing checks, Todd.
Well, they weren't even cashing checks. They were just trying to get their shows for recognition because they were doing some business marketing show, trying to artificially build influence. Yeah. So, any normal person would have just eat crow. Yeah. I'm a bad person, sulked around for a few days and learned a valuable lesson about being outed online.
But Todd,
they doubled down. They doubled down.
Todd, it's cool now to be a criminal. That's the thing.
So they doubled down, and I just kept watching this like, oh man, the hammer's coming. I didn't know what was going to be done.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, poof, the magic dragon, they're gone, and the word on the street is, and from Apple, we banned them. Wow. Yeah. Banned them. I've never heard of that. That's new. Do you ever remember in 15 years, or 14 years, a show getting banned from Apple?
Not that we knew about anyway.
How would you like to be the distinction of 550,000 shows in the Apple Podcast directory being one of like 5 that were banned?
Yeah. We're in a new time now, aren't we, Todd?
And I'm just like, you were outed, you had an opportunity to reform, you didn't. And what it's going to do and what will happen, and I'm I'm 99% sure that Apple's going to be changing their logarithm they use for determining the top 200 or top 10 or whatever it is for their stuff. I don't look at it. Be honest with you, I'm never over there and I look at it. I hear about it when someone talks about it on social, but it just boggles my mind.
It's not an indication of popularity. Really.
No,
I mean, it is
no.
a short-term. It's a short-term view of popularity, is what it is.
Timothy,
it's certainly there. Yeah, the top shows are not listed in the top 200 list.
Yeah, Tim in chat says at least getting banned from Apple is noteworthy.
Yeah. There you go.
And Patrick says, I guess I'm thinking about the email going around charging for a higher ranking in iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Yes. That is the group or one of the groups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now that's a business accolade. Use us, and maybe you won't get banned.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh man, so we're 2 for 3 here today. So here's the third one. All right, we're talking. This today is us having a little fun here, but I'm very very serious here. If you have a partner,
oh yes,
if you're doing a show with a partner, okay, let me run all the scenarios. You start a show and you get a co-host. You're a business and you start a show and you pay someone to do it. You have someone that brings a show to your business and started a podcast. And whatever scenario is, if there's 2, or you're paying someone to do a show,
2 or more,
or more,
yes,
or again, you're paying someone to do a podcast for you, you better have an agreement, even if it's scratched out on a piece of paper, signed, that says who owns what and what happens when someone leaves or gets fired or services are no longer needed or whatever the scenario, with a breakup of the band. When that happens, what happens to the podcast?
Mm-hmm. And who has all the keys to the
podcast? Right.
That's the one that always gets everybody in trouble.
Yeah, who has the login? Who's paying for it with the credit card? All that stuff. Mm-hmm. Or the PayPal account, or however you're paying for your hosting, your website, all this stuff. Because if you don't, you're going to end up in court, or battling it out between lawyers. And meanwhile, your show's probably going to go on hiatus because nothing can get done. It's not pretty.
Or, Todd, it can even get even worse than that. There's been shows that have been taken down because the feud between parties has gotten so extreme that the show violates the terms of service to fight against a former partner. I've seen that happen before too. Things can get really ugly if people get entrenched and people start threatening each other in podcasts, to do bodily harm to each other, to do, that's mainly what it is, or to just threaten other people on your podcast is one of the things that can happen too.
I've seen it where the person that had all the master files and controls the login deleted everything, went in and deleted the account, deleted the listing, demanded the media be taken down, demanded the site. We're a hosting provider. We're responding to a customer says, take our stuff down. Yep. Or we quit podcasting. We don't know the backstory. We take their media down. We take their site down. They go to Apple and request that to be deleted. And then 2 days later, all heck breaks loose.
Yeah.
Sometimes sometimes it doesn't get that bad, but people say, that my friends will never do that. Well,
yeah, I've seen people file restraining orders against other people. I've heard of it going to court. I've heard of people getting arrested.
Yeah, we got one going to
stuff that they do.
We got one going to court. So was a relatively good podcast with relatively good numbers, but it's dead in the water right now.
Yeah.
So all you got to do is just have a conversation with people, make an agreement. This is something, if you're going to do a show with a co-host, lay this out in the agreements I have for people that come over and podcast with me, specifically at Geek News Central. It's simple agreements, and it doesn't have to be complicated. But you need to have something where, even if it's just an email chain back and forth, where the person's agreeing in principle, and you have an email that you've saved that both of you are in the response chain saying, yes, I agree to this, or whatever you got to. I believe paper, a signed document, is always best.
But Todd, there's really no. I don't believe that even that will completely secure you from having a problem.
No,
I think you need to be very careful on who you pick your partners to be. I think is the most important thing, and you need to manage them and be fair with people. And I think that's the other part of this too. But if you own your show, you need to keep the keys to your show. You need to take some responsibility for keeping control of your show. Like, if your domain name if you own the domain name, keep ownership of the domain name. Don't turn it over to somebody else, or let somebody else, like a web developer or whatever, take ownership of your domain name. That's a cardinal sin. I mean, those that own need to maintain and take responsibility for what they own, and not just hand off stuff to other people willy-nilly, or expect other people to, let's say, submit your show to iTunes. Or, I mean, that's another classic one, right? You need to take responsibility for your podcast. If you're going to bring in co-hosts, just treat them just like talent, right? Bring them in as talent, but you keep control and have all the keys. If it's your show, then you need to be responsible and keep it.
I've seen even situations where people have gotten behind in their production bill.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that is producing the show wants to get paid, and they change the passwords to the accounts.
Yeah, it can happen. You're right.
And and then the person decides they're not going to pay the person they owe money to. And this happens with web development all the time. All of a sudden, your site's a black page.
Yeah, they're taking it down.
They take it down. You're not going to pay me? Fine. I got the keys to your car. Let me drive it away. And, yeah. And, so I mean, people poo-poo me all the time, Rob. I've gotten my chops busted for so many years for talking about own your feed and own your IP and all that. And, okay, go ahead and bust my chops. In the end, I'm going to be the one that's going to get the last laugh.
Mm-hmm.
It's just reality.
I mean, it's a little bit of common sense here too.
Right.
I think you have to be a little bit skeptical getting into partnerships with other people, because you just don't know what their motivations are or what they're capable of. And I think it's one of the things. And this is a cautionary tale that exists in business in general. This isn't specific to podcasting.
No,
I mean, I've seen this happen so many times, especially around domain names. I mean, that's the one that really busts my chops, is the one that, you let your web developer, register your domain name and have it on their email account, and that kind of stuff is also another one that can cause all sorts of problems.
Well, we've got that going on in the podcasting space in a big way with one company right now. Actually, two companies that submits their podcaster shows to Apple Podcasts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that luckily is a way to get your show back, but it's not simple.
Mm-mm.
And not without, maybe you could be down for a while. It's just, I don't know. We've seen this history repeat itself again and again and again.
Well, and now we're seeing it somewhat with platforms like Anchor. They will submit your show to iTunes, and you basically locked out of your show on not iTunes, but Apple Podcasts, right?
In my opinion, there's bigger issues there with terms of service and show ownership and all that stuff.
Yeah. That's all part of the bigger picture there.
Yeah. I had someone the other day that emailed me and said they were moving over there, and I said, "Have you just no problem. We'll do the redirect when you let us know. But by the way, have you read the terms of service over there?" And the person was, "No, why?" And I'm like, just going to recommend that you do." They didn't move.
Well, people now, Todd, are getting the opportunity to read their terms of service a little bit more than normal, aren't they? Over the last week.
It is GDPR +1.
That's right. Everybody's getting spammed by all these companies with their terms of service notifications here this past week. I think a lot of people are getting sick of it. But
we sent over over 250,000 emails, and we had a few people come back and say, "Why are you spamming me?" And I'm like, We're not spamming you. We are required by law to inform you of this change."
Yeah, exactly. Plus, I've had a few people, actually read the darn thing and
Me too.
have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've had some people that were completely misunderstand what what it says in the terms of service, and think that we were trying to take over control of their show.
Oh, I didn't have any of those. Ooh.
Well, they were misunderstanding that clause where it talks about the kind of protection of the proprietary nature of the platform, not the show.
Right.
They were thinking that applied to their show. Like the copying and reproducing of code
right.
of the platform as somehow applying to their content. And that's, those terms of services are there to protect people.
Now they are.
Yes. They're there to protect the platform, which would be, Raw Voice, Blueberry, or Spreaker, or whatever. And there's terms in there that will protect you as a content provider. And then there's other terms in there that will protect copyright holders. And that actually applies to all those things. But copyright holders can be those that own copyrighted music, or, those kind of things. And then terms in there that will restrict you from, doing illegal acts in your show. That's the purpose of those things.
There's we were ready, but we had some stuff that came in like finalized and put up on our websites at the last hour. I mean, that's how much work went into this. I had 2 sites left. I'm like, I said, "Angela, we've already gotten inquiries. How come that hasn't been updated on this page?" And we were kind of surprised, because we said, well, maybe, we're trying to get everything else done. And these last 2 sites, I said, "You've got to finish them today." And so we had to finish them today. It was just, right down the wire for us. And I'm going to be frank, I don't think most podcast companies are ready. You are, we are. I don't think the rest of them, I've heard very little discussion from any other podcast host. So I'm kind of curious, anyone that's listened to the show. I know that Libsyn sent out an email blast a couple of weeks ago. We've sent out ours. Rob, I assume you guys did, and then
we did. Actually, each time you go to the Spreaker website or any of our tools, the first thing that you'll see is you have to opt into the new terms of service.
Yeah. We didn't force. We didn't go that far. We didn't force a pop in, but there is. Everything's been updated. Everyone's been informed, and so it's total pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But I think we're done. The stat stuff was the hardest. That was the hardest one for us, is the collection of that data and the personal identifiable information contained in the IP, and the rules around how long that can be stored, and then it has to be, obscured, or there was, that was a lot of work. When you're dealing with millions of incoming hits a day, or downloads a day, and then those log files all have PII in them, and they have to be processed and still give the customers their valid podcast stats, and then comply with GDPR. Was huge work across our ecosystem, and still allow it to be usable. That's the key here, and not having to take features away from folks. But some stuff we know has feature requests we've had in the past, we're not going to be able to comply with because I just can't fit it. I can't do it without not being in violation of GDPR. So, it's big.
Yeah.
You guys probably wasn't as hard because you guys were already primarily started. You got a big EU focus or European focus, so you guys probably had a lot of this stuff already.
Well, there was a lot of work. I mean, it's something that the team has been working on, for the last 3 months. Just, that's probably how long you guys have been working on it too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just look at the bill on this thing and lawyer fees alone. Holy cow.
Well, it's, I mean, for us, it was more kind of, more of a loss of opportunity, I think is what it was. I mean, it's not like we spent any more money on it per se. It's just we weren't able to spend that money on adding features and functionality and moving the platform forward.
Right.
I think is where the real loss was.
Yeah, it was at least a 2-month delay in my dev. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So people just don't understand it. I estimate now, just going looking back at the numbers, the dev hours, the meetings, the lawyer fees, everything else, probably $100K was what my cost was on this to implement this. So, if I look at just, salary and everything else, it went into the dev, but it is what it is. But yeah, lost opportunity on. Now I'm like, thank God, I full speed ahead team. Let's go. Because my agenda has been jacked up because of having to deal with this.
Yeah, I mean, we're behind on making improvements to the platform to make us a better platform. So that's the real trade-off that happened for us.
Yep.
Well, Todd, I've been talking to the Podcast Movement guys, and I don't know if you've been talking to the NAB folks, but there's some movement over there, or some changes over there that are brewing on the NAB side. I know I mixed together Podcast Movement and NAB in one phrase there, but the Podcast Movement stuff, the schedule, I guess, of all the sessions is almost ready to be published, I guess, or some of it's up there already. But I don't know, have you talked to the NAB folks?
I was supposed to be on a call yesterday with Sylvester. Mackenzie did a call, but I got stuck and I couldn't get on the call, so I'm going to have to reschedule another time to talk to Sylvester. He wanted some feedback on the event.
Yeah.
So
I did a call with Sylvester to talk about it, and they're talking about moving us to the Central Hall.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I thought that was good potential news.
Central Hall.
Yeah.
Where?
I don't. More over by where all the microphone folks are.
That would be big.
Yeah.
So was the majority of the complaints that we were kind of like in this no man zone?
Yeah. Plus a lot more of a content focus on the exhibition floor. So is the other part of it too.
On the floor. Oh, good.
Yeah, kind of like what.
Skype just.
Would you lose me?
Yeah, for just a second. What did you say? Kind of like what?
Oh, kind of like what we did with that panel. You, Rob, and I did. Yeah. Where there could be a content area that we actually have a track.
That would be awesome.
So so that's been talked about. It's the same thing, like the digital advertising pavilion, where they actually have a track of panels and talks and presentations and demos and things like that.
All right. Well, I just have to reschedule with Sylvester. I felt bad, but I got jammed up and couldn't get on the call with him. So what about the Podcast Movement folks?
Well, they're wrapping up, pulling all the sessions together.
Yeah.
But from what I gather, they've had more registrations so far than they've had at any other Podcast Movement event. So and and there's still 2 months to go. So they're beyond where they were last year on attendees.
Awesome. So you do know that the exhibit area is only open Tuesday and Wednesday.
I do. Yes.
All right. So I'm leaving Wednesday night. Well, actually, no, I'll leave Thursday night. I'm gonna bust out because what I don't even know what I'm gonna do Thursday. What are you gonna do?
Well, that's the last day of the event, Todd.
I know, Thursday. But what are you gonna do? We're not gonna have you and I are usually standing in the booth. I didn't realize that they had went to a 2-day exhibit thing until I was like, wait a minute, only 2 days for exhibits, and it's really kind of weird.
Well, Todd, I think if you really think about it, most of these conferences, the last day, we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs anyway,
we
right,
are,
Todd?
Typically.
Yeah.
But also, those days have tended to be the days where people that have been in the conference that kind of get tired of the conference were able to come and see us. So we'll see how that goes. But it is what it is.
I mean, if that means that, I can spend more time kind of
networking,
out mingling with people. Now, granted, on the last day, usually it's a lot of people are gone by then.
Yeah. I think I booked I'm going to go back and see my mom for a few days. I think I booked like a 6:00 departure out of there, and
I haven't booked my flight yet.
So I got my flight. Hey, flying in, and I don't know what it is about that destination. You better book your ticket, Rob. It's something about that area. Holy cow!
Oh, was it expensive?
For me, it was expensive. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know why. Well, a lot more than normal. I normally can, I know what my tickets run, but going to that destination for some reason was like 40% higher than my normal ticket.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. It was ridiculous. And I fly United, and I went, so, well, screw this. Let me look at American and Delta, and they were all high. So I stuck with United. But anyway.
Yeah, I did. Dan did mention from Podcast Movement that the hotel is booking up fast. I guess they've had to secure, a third block of rooms or something like that. Wow. Yeah.
Oh, good.
So it's booking up fast. So if you want to,
we got our hotels already.
Got to get it booked up here right away. And I'm probably going to have to do that too here. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do it before I leave, but
did you already vote on the Hall of Fame folks? Okay.
Yes.
Well, that was an interesting list, wasn't it?
It was.
Mm-hmm. Names. There was a couple names there I didn't even know.
Well, when you have to be a podcaster for at least 10 years too, Todd.
I know. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I was like, interesting one. So
yeah. I was a little surprised in a few of them.
So I wonder, what when they're going to announce that, because they have to give those folks a little bit of a heads up.
Well, they usually do phone calls, personal phone calls. Remember?
Yeah. I think I got an email.
Oh, you did?
So, I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens here. All right, cool. Lots of other stuff going on in the space. It's just, we're as busy as ever. And I will say one thing, Rob. We did this big planning meeting, and most of the stuff is on the board. We already know, but Angelo dropped a nuclear bomb on us. He came in and I'm really baiting you here, so I'm sorry. This is not going to end up having a punchline, but he said, yeah, one of the employees suggested this, and I was like, and he explained it, and I was like, whoa.
Okay. Yeah, you're not baiting me at all.
So hopefully Podcast Movement will be able to talk about it. I don't think it'll be ready by then, but maybe we'll be able to talk about it. So you're going to be like, okay, Todd, that's dumb. But I think it's, whoa.
So are you going to on your backdrops, since these booths are only 8x8, are you gonna have to get a different backdrop?
No, I'm just gonna fold mine. What about you?
I'm gonna buy a whole new thing. So.
Oh.
Well, I don't.
They're like they're like $700.
I know. Well, I'm just going to get one that's 8x8, so I can use it in any booth. I can use it in my 10x10 too.
Oh, yeah. It sucks having to order a second one.
Yeah.
I think Rob Walsh is going to. Did you hear what is Rob going to buy another one, or is he going to just?
I don't know. Not sure.
I've never been to an event with an 8-foot booth ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just weird. I'm just probably have to suck it because folding it's going to look like the caca. So I'm going to have to order another one. Ugh.
Yeah, and it's not a bendable thing, right? Where you can bend around the edge.
Well, these ones, you saw what we've got now. They're cloth, so they'll, it'll work, but it just is going to look weird, Yeah. So, all right. It is what it is. But
supersized.
Yeah. Hopefully it is actually 8 feet, not like 7 feet, 10 inches or something like that.
Hey, I saw that Rob Walsh raised the term Zune in the comment thread around that post that Tom Webster made.
Oh, in regards to the $1 million.
Well, he was talking about Spotify too, but yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I missed it. What did Tom say?
I think here. Let me pull it up here really quick. So he was. I guess a guy had posted something, or Tom had posted something about Amy Schumer.
Oh yeah.
Starting, an exclusive show on Spotify.
Right.
Which here we go again. Spotify being a little tone deaf to the community. Doing.
You're cutting out, Rob. You're cutting out again.
I gotta kill this. I can't load this app while I'm doing the show. But yeah, they, I guess, signed a deal for $1 million to have Amy Schumer do a podcast.
Yeah, I saw that. So you're better now. Yeah. Whatever you're doing on your laptop, that definitely wasn't good.
I know. I just shut it down.
It basically, the Spotify spent $1 million, signed her for a podcast deal, an exclusive podcast deal.
Yeah.
So what did Rob say about that?
Well, Rob was just talking about how Spotify he's saying that it's got 6.9% of the 20% of the podcasts that he's added, of his catalog, he's added 20% of the shows on Libsyn over to Spotify. And of those 20%, it's showing about a 6.9% uptake in the percent of downloads.
Right? I'm not seeing anything anywhere close to that.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not either.
I'm not seeing anything close to that. Nowhere. No.
And
if any podcaster that's listening right now is on Rob's platform, my platform, or Libsyn's platform, if you have 6% or higher of your total audience listening via Spotify, please email us and provide us a screenshot. Please.
Well, Todd, there's no way for many of these folks to actually know that, though, Todd, right?
Well, it's not apples and apples. It's apples and oranges. So let's say, for example, you have 1,000 downloads, and in your Spotify stats, you have 600, or no, it would be 60 plays. Then I know it's not apples and oranges.
No. I was just saying, I don't believe that podcasters have access to their stats yet. Do they?
Well, we made ours available.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, what are you actually using the API that was provided by Spotify?
We're pulling something. I don't know what we're pulling. We're pulling a log, or I don't know how we're doing it. All I know is we're getting stats.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're pulling something from them. I don't know if it's via API or if it's a log or I don't know. They spent about a month building it, so whatever.
Okay.
But I'm not seeing 6%.
Yeah.
I guess I just need to go roll the show. I need to start looking at them deeper.
Yeah, I actually wrote on Facebook that I think, as you look at kind of the big picture of this, I mean, I think if Google gets fully on board with supporting podcasts, those guys should be sitting in the number 2 position at some point.
Well, they already are.
And I think,
well, Google is? Android as a whole is.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, okay, fair enough on that. And then Spotify and maybe Pandora will battle out for third and fourth place is where I think in the long run, that's kind of how this is going to play out.
Well, I don't know. I've never listened to Amy Schumer, so.
Oh no, I don't think Amy Schumer is going to make one hill of beans difference in any of this. It's going to take 1,000 Amy Schumers to make any kind of a blip in Spotify's numbers. So yeah,
6.9% of the average of all their shows. That means that you think about that number. I'm not saying Rob's wrong. So that means that some shows have incredibly high numbers because the majority are going to be 1%. You know,
yeah.
150, 150, 150. You know, you can get to 6% that way.
Yeah,
but you can't get there. I think the majority of shows are, and he did mention there was a couple of categories that are really hot in Spotify, religion and something else. So
well, I thought it was a younger listener base, so you're going to have some shows that are just not going to resonate over there.
Yeah, but he said religion was hot on Spotify, so go figure.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's what he said.
Well, religion is not a hot category anywhere.
Let me see if I can find it.
I mean, it's got there's a lot of shows in the religion category, but I wouldn't say there's a lot of listening activity over there.
He said that. Hang on, let me see if I can find it. I'm looking through my notes here. I'll find it. Maybe we'll have to ask Rob to come on because if it's 6.9%, then wow, that's a big number. But I'm not seeing it yet. But okay, I'll see if I can find this. I've got it somewhere in a text or something. Because he told me 2 categories are really hot. And some were not. You know, tech is not, obviously.
No. Well, tech's not hot in any platform anymore.
Okay.
Really?
I don't know if I agree with that.
Really? What platform is it still hot in? The Apple one?
There's still, tech shows are still rocking, you know, so.
Okay. I just didn't think it was as cool anymore.
Well, it's not as
used to be.
It's not as cool, but it still delivers.
There's still geeks out there.
Yes, there's a lot of geeks out there. You know,
there's also a lot of nerds out there too that like to listen to the comic book shows.
Of course.
Yeah.
Those have always been good. So
yeah. Hey, I'm talking a lot more lately to two big events in the country right now: DragonCon and FinCon. So, have you had any involvement with those folks?
We went last year. We're not going this year.
To FinCon?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep. But I think we went twice. We're not going again. So
it didn't work out real well for you.
Just it's all about number of people we talk to and number of clients we get out of that. It's you've got a lot of entrepreneurs that go to FinCon. They have a lot of things going on. They do a lot of things. Well, let's put it this way: they do a lot of things and not a lot of things well.
Okay.
Well, they're spread out. They're so busy trying to build their entrepreneurship that they're doing 50 different things, and they can't, there's a lot of focus required to do a good podcast. And
I see what you're saying.
so, and they're all
trying to do videos, they're trying to write books, they're trying to do speaking opportunities, they're trying to do mastermind events, they're trying to, all this stuff. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So, so if they're going to have some events, he's a great promoter of podcasts. Don't get me wrong. His affiliate revenue is very good on the podcasting side. So,
did you do any speaking at any of those events?
No, we did not. So you're going to get to go speak? If you do, that's good. That's new.
Yeah. I mean, I would, yes. Dragon Con is the other one
that sounds like a fun event.
It's really big. It's a really huge event, I guess.
So that's a bunch of creative types, so that should be good.
Well, it's a very similar community to PodCon.
Right.
That same kind of, I guess, cosplay type of event.
Yeah.
And speaking of PodCon, I believe it's coming back in January.
So have they actually got some dates, or?
What I heard looks like sometime early, mid-January, I guess.
Oh, that's going to totally screw me. I guess I have to send other team members because...
Well, you probably should anyway, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Younger the better.
Same with me. It's like, I mean, it's right in my backyard though, so it's hard to justify that. But,
right.
Yeah.
But it just be, Francesco, if you're listening, it's not an event for a couple of old white guys.
Todd, the medium is changing, and I guess we just have to somehow make ourselves appear younger, I guess.
So that's Grecian formula and Botox, and that's the reason I'm going to the gym and trying to lose 50 pounds, and yeah.
That's right.
That's a thing now for people over 50. They're, to make themselves relevant, plastic surgery among men 50 and older is a booming business right now. Because, people start, they start axing 50 and above, you can become too expensive. So, they can hire that 20-year-old to replace you. So,
yeah, that's true.
Not that workforce discrimination goes on, but it does. So,
you can't wait too long. Also, you get too far gone and you can't come back. Right.
Yeah. My wife had asked me one time, "Do you want to do hair plugs?" I'm like, "No, I'll shave my head before I do hair plugs."
Yeah. You're at that point. You're committed to your destiny, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So Clinton says, "I go to Dragon Con every year." So that's, of course, Clinton Halford. So, as a matter of fact, that kind of reminds me, we're just a couple of months away from the original Podcast Awards nomination phase opening up. So,
that's right. That's coming up.
Yeah. I've just been kind of on autopilot with that thing because I've just been so busy on other stuff.
So how's it going to be different this year? Have you put a plan together?
A bigger voting pool. And the voting pool last year was a little bit too small. I had to, because I didn't get enough people to vote, so I had to reach out and grab another stack. So this year we just opened the voting pool up a little bigger, following the same formula as last year. It worked out really well. And I liked how everything proceeded. So no major changes, just a bigger voting pool at the end.
Okay.
Yep. Because what it is, people say they want to vote, and you put them down to vote, and then they don't, or they only vote for one show, and was not the goal. The goal was to have them, listen to shows and vote on their favorites in each category. But it's hard to get people to do that. So we randomized the people that are voting. We just shake her up pretty good, and that way that the favorite shows that they nominate they're obviously going to vote for, but we want them to vote down category too. even it out.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yep.
Hey, so what do you think of the change that Podcast Movement folks did to separating the awards ceremony from the Hall of Fame stuff? Do you think that was a good move?
Oh, I didn't even realize they did that.
It's going to be in two separate. I think it's two separate nights.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Probably got too long, didn't it?
Could have been.
Well, I don't know. I guess we'll see. I have mixed feelings about it.
Are you involved in that? Are you involved in that?
No.
I mean, or do we know yet?
No, that's their own dealio. I don't have any involvement in any of that.
No. I mean, like last year, you were on stage for doing some of it. That was kind of my perception, is that when you're inducted, you kind of have maybe some responsibility to participate maybe at some point.
Yeah, if they'll ask, if they ask you to present someone, yeah. And I think they would, if you look at what they did last year, Rob introduced Elsie. I introduced you. So, I think they try to align people that know the person for the introduction. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
We need to know who the nominees are first, or who the inductees are.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to do 5 or 6 this year. I think are they going to do 5? Can't remember.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I think the only time they did 6 is when they had one inductee that was 2.
Oh, Don and Drew, right? Yeah.
Don and Drew. Yep.
Yep. So I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We're waiting on time. Oh, we're just about the end here. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Let me look at.
Made it.
Yeah. Let me look at some of the stuff that. I hate to say it, but the podnews.net guy, he's nailing it. He's getting all the news.
Mr. Cridland?
Yes, he is. He's doing a good job. So if you are not...
Well, what's great about him is that he actually looks at podcasting from a global standpoint, which I think is an interesting evolution of this.
Yeah.
I think he's going to gather a lot more possible success than some of the others.
Yeah. So, of course, we had... here's some people. Must be, we've got kids being forced out of bed here. I hear my wife yelling at kids. Yeah, so just, Google Home outselling Amazon Echo, talking about biggest brands are advertising in podcasts. Someone went through and figured out 200 some companies are advertising. Talking about some studios, talking about some, a lot of content plays, a lot of people launching content. And I think that's, you just see a huge explosion of content at this point. So I think we're going to see more of that.
Yeah. Plus platforms, there's more investment coming into the space. Yeah. Everything seems to be growing and developing at a good clip.
Yeah. And I'm turning away calls now. These late party and like they come in late party or late investors. It got too much. I got too many people calling and wanting to invest, and I think sometimes they're just on fishing expeditions for information about the space. And I don't know if you have to deal any of those calls, or probably it's done by your boss, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't get too involved in those type of calls per se, but
yeah.
I mean, we have our own board of directors and our own investors and people that are behind the company and ownership positions or advisor positions and things like that they typically handle a lot of that stuff. I don't get involved in that too much.
Right. So anyway, it is what it is. I think the space is, one thing that's not happening is consolidation, though. You don't see no consolidation. People were all predicting a lot of consolidation. We haven't seen that this year yet.
What do you attribute that to? Why that's not happening? It's not maturing fast enough, or it seems like there's a lot of new companies being birthed.
Yeah, a lot of new companies. I don't know. I don't know why there's no roll-up happening yet. We'll see. There's a lot of money shopping, don't get me wrong. So it's not that and maybe they just haven't found the deal, and maybe the space isn't big enough yet. Maybe the dollar amounts on an individual company basis is not big enough yet to, or juicy enough for someone to make a move. So
I do know some big players that are looking for something.
There's some looking.
Looking. Yes. The question is whether or not what they're finding meets what they are looking for,
or if they're willing to write the check necessary.
Yeah, well, that's always a factor,
right? Yes. Because I think probably what they're finding, this is speculation on my part, I think is what they're finding is companies that are doing there's no one that's sucking, no one that's desperate to sell.
Well, that's actually not a bad thing.
Right.
That means that the industry is relatively healthy.
Yeah. I think maybe that's my speculation is.
But it does feel like we're coming into over the next couple of years, we could come into another little bubble blip in this because of the investing enthusiasm that we're seeing now. Some of these companies probably aren't going to make it.
Well, we'll see. There's a lot of people fighting for. What's amazing is just the number of. I continue to be astounded by the number of people coming in the space, the creators coming in the space. To me, it's remarkable. We talked about it at length. Looking at growth and you're just looking at this thing from the 5,000 foot view, trying to it's been a pretty good run.
Do you think that side of it is growing too fast for the market?
I don't think so. But we definitely, I'm getting to, I just get these gut feelings. We talked through programmatic and everything else, and I think more money's got to come into the space. I think the advertising dollars have to grow a little faster than it is. I think you still have 2/3, maybe, let me say this again, 8/10 of the space that is not monetized. And I think there's dollar-wise, if we can get to 5/10, or we can get 50% of the shows monetized, I think that'll make for much better longevity of content. But some people don't care about the money. Some people just want to create a show.
Yeah.
It's like YouTube.
I mean, what's the model that's gonna scale to half of the shows? That's the thing that we're struggling with is what's the exact model? Because it's got to be a balance between the content of the advertising with the delivery methodologies, and is it effective? I think.
I think if you look at the digital banner space and advertising on Facebook, they've had huge, probably billions of dollars in investment in that technology.
Mm-hmm.
To make all that work.
We just haven't seen that kind of investment.
No,
not at all. Not at all.
There hasn't been that level of tech investment at all. And until that happens, we're not going to have the same digital integration. People are trying, White Orbital's trying, Triton's trying, AdsWizz is trying, you guys are trying. It takes a lot of money to do that. A lot. To do it right, And
I'm not sure that the content side of the advertising business is really keeping pace with what the needs of this market are. I think so. When I say content, what I'm talking about is the content of the ads, right? The production values of the ads that match with the podcasting space,
right? And that's a whole another piece of it,
I think we're still living a little bit in the online radio space with podcasting, and it doesn't entirely fit. And that's another factor that's holding back. I don't know that the stats part is really holding us back.
No,
that
I
much.
don't. The stats aren't. I think it's largely the tech integration. There's really, programmatic on the digital side is truly, if you have a programmatic model, a pure programmatic model, that model is the price for an ad is changing literally by the second, and it's being delivered, some IP in Boise, Idaho clicks to, and it is bid, that ad is bid at the point of click.
Yeah.
And
it's a real-time platform.
It's real time, and that doesn't fit what we do. That model will never work completely.
Yeah.
Because
if there's any chance for it to work, the ad itself needs to be different than what it is today.
And it does. And so that in itself, then the inventory then immediately becomes much smaller, because you have literally hundreds of people or buyers bidding. It's all automated, highs and lows. It's like stock bidding, and it's really a fully automated ad platform. It's what really happens in programmatic. So what you and I have talked about here for the last couple of years is a hybrid that doesn't fit into what digital media buyers are used to using today.
Yeah. It's kind of living in the future. It's living on where this should go. And that's why we keep talking about it, is that we can see how this might work. But we're not there yet. No. And there's an education curve here. There's kind of a technology advancement that needs to happen. I think that to some degree, this GDPR thing is kind of not a positive development for this stuff either. But,
no, I don't know. I don't know about that. I think that it doesn't limit your ability to target for a region geographically. Demographically, yeah, it's going to put a curveball on it.
Yeah. That's really in some ways where the opportunity, the biggest part of the opportunity.
But they use so many. But you got to remember, Rob, if we fully understood how the digital space works, they get so many factors. This whole GDPR thing is good on paper, but business as usual. It's not changing the way people are being targeted. Because they get so many different signals from so many different places. They can't. The genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah.
But we don't have that integration, and I don't know if we necessarily want that type of integration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to know that the ad is coming to a 25-year-old single mom. I don't need to. Do I really need that at this point?
Yeah, but I agree with you, Todd, that I think targeting can be done more on an anonymous basis. You and I don't need to know, but the computer needs to know, right?
Someone still has to program that in and build the buy.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't have to be known at an individual layer. It just needs to be known anonymously in the system somehow. But I guess there's always the danger that somebody can get in there and get that information, and I guess that's the risk.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how the space continues to develop out. My team has their marching plans. We know where we're headed for the next 6 to 9 months, and I'm sure that you guys are on the same trajectory on what you've got planned for dev-wise. It's always about the dev.
It is. That's the time that we live in, Todd, and I think the whole artificial intelligence stuff is going to have a growing factor here. I don't know what the next big breakthrough is going to be at this point. I think we're still a little bit unsure on that. I think we had a little glimpse that Spotify was going to be that big breakthrough, but it's still, a work in progress on that.
Well, we'll see if they can speed up the ingestion of new shows once they get their system fixed.
Yeah. Once they can start adding shows.
Right.
A little bit more quicker than just doing a deal with NPR or Amy Schumer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, we're at 90 some minutes, so we're good.
Yeah. Okay.
Everyone, if you want to get comments on today's show, we've been all over the place. Todd at blueberry.com. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Geek News. Rob?
You can find me at robgreenlee.com. I do the Spreaker live show every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific. I won't do it next week, but and that's at spreakerliveshow.com. And my email address is rob@voxnest.com. So, or Spreaker, rob@spreaker.com too.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in and putting up with our sporadic schedule here. Hopefully by July, we'll be back to hitting it hard again, but things have been nuts.
and then we'll be off the podcast movement.
Right. Yeah. It never ends.
Right.
So, yeah. Everyone, thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Everyone, take care. And we'll see you next time on the New Media Show. Aloha. Bye-bye.